Today's guest is Kelly Waters, CEO of 101 Ways. And if you'd like to meet and hear him in person, you have an opportunity on the 20th of September 2018 in Amsterdam. He will be speaking at AgileAmsterdam.nl. Agile.FM, radio for the Agile community. www.agile.fm. Welcome to another episode of Agile FM, and I have a UK resident, Kelly Waters, with me from 101 Ways, 101ways.com, and Kelly can be reached at Twitter. His handle is Kelly_Waters. Kelly has won several awards, for example, Most Valuable Agile Player in 2010 in the UK, 2016, Most Popular Online Contributor in the Agile Community. He wrote a book in 2012, probably wrote it before, but published in 2012. It's called All About Agile. It's very much related to the blog, All About Agile. He actively worked and still working on that blog. But before we get started talking about with Kelly, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks very much. Good to be here.
Yeah, Kelly, every time we speak, and when I go to your website at 101 Ways, you're wearing black t-shirts. You're a black t-shirt kind of guy, just like me.
Yeah, I keep it simple. I think that's our motto in Agile and work as well. Keep things simple, nice and easy.
That's easy, right? So black t-shirt. The 100 ways of doing things, 100 ways of writing, 100 days of, and so forth, ... You replace it. Your company is 101 Ways. Is that 101st way of doing things? Is that related to Agile?
Yeah, it is really, because what I noticed really in my career and working with lots of different teams is there really are 101 ways of doing everything, and usually there's no right or wrong way. You know, there's different ways that are good for different groups of people at different times, depending on their own setting. And so when naming the company, I thought that was a good name because it reflects really my ethos that I don't really buy into one methodology or one framework or one right way. Mm-hmm. And I very much like the true sense of agility where you kind of adjust and adapt to the situation you find yourself in. And so the company ethos is really all about that.
Mm-hmm. Well, you've been in the Agile community for a long, long time. Even though you wrote or published your book in 2012, you've been around for much, much longer as a technical lead, as a project manager. And now with the company, correct me if I'm wrong, you guys are building things from start to finish, almost like an agency approach, including leadership. Why is Agile so important for you from the work you guys are doing?
Well, we're a product-focused technology consultancy, so most of what we do is help our clients to deliver digital products, and we do that on-site by building teams and working together with their people. And, of course, with digital products, it's a bit like the company name again. There's no obvious right way. It's very hard to know what users really want. It's very hard to ascertain that from research because what people say and what people do are often different. And so for us, building digital products is about incrementally delivering something to market and incrementally getting user feedback and assessing the data and understanding what's working and what isn't, and through that discovering what's the right product. And that's been my career for many years, nearly over 20 decades actually, is building products with technology that really benefit from the incremental nature of Agile and the ability to incrementally discover the product that works best for the users and therefore usually does the best commercially too. So for me, it was always very fitting when I discovered Agile. It was a revelation. It was really like, it was a long time ago now, but it was really like, wow, this is brilliant, because when doing product development, we didn't know what this product should be in advance. So our ability to ship frequently and build a product incrementally and base the next iterations on what we learned from the last one. It just feels like it fits really, really well with product development.
Yeah, I'm curious, are any of your customers asking you about Agile or are they interested in the Agile process? My guess is yes,
Yeah.
but are there any companies out there who basically already at this point say this is a given, or is this contractually manifested as like, I want you to do an Agile process for me?
Yeah, actually, we do Agile transformation work as well as building products together with our clients, and we often do the two together. So we're transforming an organization, we're helping teams learn different ways of working, apply different technical practices as well, and through doing that, deliver a new product. And usually we are doing that as very much part of our brief. So clients are asking us, come and help us with Agile as well as deliver something. So that's nearly always part of what we do. In terms of where they're coming from, it's much less common now that people are coming from multiple. It's in our case, we're working in media publishing and e-commerce especially. And what we find with our clients is that they're already doing Agile. And I say that quite specifically, doing Agile, not necessarily being very Agile. They really, there is a given, but they're not necessarily doing it well. And they're not necessarily getting all the kind of benefits that they expected from it. Maybe they still have other problems organisationally within the teams, the way they work together, getting stuff delivered continuously. They have all sorts of problems, even though they are actually working in an Agile way. So usually what we're brought to do is deliver a product and help them with that Agile practice so that they can kind of see the full benefits of what Agile can do for them. We don't really get people saying, come and show us how to do Scrum or something as specific and basic as that now. It's much more organisational problem solving where the teams are already operating in some sort of, if not an Agile framework, then in a fairly Agile way.
Well, it's very interesting that you just mentioned one of the processes as Scrum. Your background, when we spoke a few weeks ago, is really about extreme programming. That's how you came into the Agile field in the first place, if I remember correctly. How important is, because you're developing things, right, for clients in an Agile way, how important is extreme programming for you and for the clients, and not only for you, but when I say for you, also the company?
I think for us it's very, very important, and it has been in my career. I think I've had great success with Scrum and using Scrum to improve communication, improve how teams organise their work and improve delivery, but not without the technical practices that go with it. So without something like TDD and good test-driven approach, without continuous delivery in place, then the chances to actually deliver incrementally and do this adapt and learn that I was talking about earlier is quite limited. So for me, continuous delivery is a sort of key part of that, and the technical practices to enable that without breaking things all the time is like a prerequisite almost for then having short iterations with actual product delivered at the end. Ideally, with most of our teams, we would have delivery happening throughout the day, all the way through the sprint. So we wouldn't necessarily treat a sprint like a fixed delivery. We would treat it just more like a planning time box. And ideally, teams are delivering code all through every day. And that's always been the case with my teams that I've worked with, and I always felt like without that, we couldn't really be truly Agile. And of course, all those practices come from XP, Extreme Programming, and it feels a bit like the forgotten framework or forgotten methodology to me at times. It feels like everything's about Scrum or about SAFe or about other methodologies, and people don't really talk about XP much. But to me, these are the fundamental practices that are needed by a software team. Yeah,
they go hand in hand, right? In the reason I'm asking this question is from a development consultancy. You're building digital products. I would say you're probably in the creation of the product. But what about maintenance of those products? Are you involved in those as well? Because that is really where the quality of the software you guys are creating is very important, right? So the XP practices where unit tests, for example, continuous integration and so forth. How important is that for building these digital products, especially if you're thinking about a life cycle of a product?
Yeah, we do some new components that are greenfield and brand new and have all of these things built in from scratch, which is great. But most of our work is with large clients, with large PLCs that have lots of existing systems, some legacy, some relatively newer, but all always. I wouldn't describe it necessarily as maintenance because we're often there to deliver a step change in the technology, but always with existing code and existing systems to integrate with. And obviously what we find is that older systems don't have tests built in, don't have good coverage, aren't necessarily easy to deploy and do continuous delivery. And so that's a challenge. That's something that we always try to improve on whenever we're in a client because, like I was describing before, if you can't deliver frequently, then the ability to actually be agile is not going to be achieved just by layering on the sort of management and team processes. So we do encounter that all the time. We do have to accept, I suppose, that there's a heavier amount of manual testing that might have to go on around legacy systems that don't have automated tests. But then when we work with those, we just have to make sure that where we integrate with them is very clear and decoupled, and the stuff that we're building new has all the tests that you would expect. So we can make sure that integration keeps working even if we're deploying all the time.
Right.
So we do face that challenge, Joe. None of our clients are, none of our clients are starting afresh from scratch. They're all building some new things, continuing to build on existing things, and always integrating the two.
Yeah. Beside those things we just talked about, what are the typical, big challenges you face working with clients, right? So this is why I'm so excited having you on this podcast, is because you do take this external view on things and you work with clients using an agile process. But what are the challenges you face? Like I just picture media companies. I have worked with media companies. And some of the executive team, they might not necessarily care about if this is agile or not agile. They just want products to be built. What are the challenges you're facing on a typical base here with agile in particular, building these products?
I think there is something about the wider organisation and interfacing into parts of the organisation that are less agile. Whether that's other departments like finance or whatever, or whether it's other areas of technology division where they may be working on enterprise products that aren't delivered in an agile way, or their packages that are brought in. So there are always these interdependencies with parts of the organisation that don't work in an agile way, and therefore expect different things from an agile team, and maybe getting priorities aligned and interdependencies connected is all quite difficult. So that's definitely one challenge that we see probably in most of our clients because we're all pretty big. But it's not the thing I would say is the biggest challenge. I think the biggest challenge is probably humans. We put a huge amount of emphasis on the team building aspects of our work, and we sort of talk about building great teams, whether that's ours or for our clients. And the biggest challenge and the most important part is actually getting people working well together. And obviously some of the agile techniques help with that quite a lot. But others is just about good leadership, good facilitation, good team spirit, good coordination, and making sure that teams actually do have a shared goal, they're able to focus and have all the skills they need to deliver. So I think the main thing I would say is it's really around getting teams of people working brilliantly together is the art. Whichever techniques you bring, there's an art to that. And that's where most of our clients face challenges and where we tend to help.
Well, it's funny that you're using the word brilliantly here, right? Because in most of the cases, when I see agile being practiced, is brilliantly would be a very high goal, but I love high goals. So thanks for that. Do you mind just maybe taking a concrete example of take a success story, or like where from one of the clients you work with, you don't necessarily have to share the name, But just like maybe point out where Agile really played a big role, and one of the success stories you guys had, and the touch points of where you feel like the big value of the process actually shines through, if you have any of those.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, we have lots of successful projects that have been delivered with good products and products that have won awards and the team have been very proud of, and really discovered the product through this incremental delivery. So they were able to, build a product that users loved, and they got great results as a consequence. In terms of kind of people working really brilliantly together, that kind of thing. Obviously, we do transformation work, and in clients that come to us with a transformation brief, the idea that they want to get better at Agile, they want the teams to deliver better. Mm-hmm. I'd say the usual problem, it's hard to generalize, of course, but the usual problem is delivery, is that teams in large organizations find it very difficult to deliver much for a very large number of reasons. And I think what we find, and maybe this will make it a little bit more concrete, is that in order to solve those problems, we need to look not just at the way the team is working together and agile methodologies, but we need to look at the whole picture. We want to take a more holistic view. So we would tend to look at structure and how the teams are structured and organised. We would look at the vision and why they want to go agile, and what are the problems that we're actually trying to solve, and what are we actually trying to, why are we trying to do this? We look at principles, so that way beyond whatever methodologies people are using, what are the principles that are important to the team? Why, this is about getting an alignment on values and ideology in a way, so that people can actually be pulling in the same direction. And we look at the technology piece specifically, and about how to enable continuous delivery. Often that's around getting things into the cloud, or getting things properly implemented in the cloud, implementing sort of DevOps practices within the team, and getting that continuous delivery piece up and running. Mm-hmm. And we also look at leadership, and look at the sort of style of leadership that then is present in a client in order to give the teams the support they need to be successful. And so I think that the sort of, obviously it's hard to be really concrete about a specific client, but I think when we've done transformations that look holistically at all of those different elements, not just at agile methodology, in fact not even focusing so much on just the agile method, then we see massively more successful results. Mm-hmm. Because it's all of those things together with finding the best people that makes a team deliver really well, and agile seems to be a critical enabler to that. But what you see far too often is people implementing the sort of capital A agile method and forgetting about all the other stuff.
Right. So what I'm hearing here is full ownership of the development and influencing the leadership, rather than staffing, right? And
exactly. Yeah, exactly. So we talk about this sort of consulting element, which is around providing a kind of advice and guidance on all of these different factors. Mm-hmm. The leadership piece, which of course we're really into servant leadership because it really fits well with the agile principles of empowering teams and becoming more and more self-organising. But still, some leadership is important to solve organisational problems that are beyond the remit of the team. And then the teams themselves, and getting them working well together. So I think the concrete thing for me is we have to enter into these things with a full slice of the organisation, where that influence can be top to bottom and can kind of affect all those different aspects, not just the way the team works together.
Yeah. So with you being exposed to this kind of work, and obviously with your expertise in agile processes, where do you think we are heading? Maybe in your world from a consultancy's perspective, but also maybe on a more general level, where do you think the industry is heading with Agile? We've been using processes for quite some time. The ones we've mentioned so far, Scrum and XP, have been around for a long, long time. But things have changed since then. And where do you see the future? I don't want to go too far ahead, but maybe a year or so. Where do you think we're heading with all this?
I think we're in a difficult spot right now with sort of the agile community, because it feels like for some years it was all small projects, small teams. XP and Scrum worked really well. Kanban for teams that may be a bit further forward, and it all felt like the heyday. The days when everything was really small and easy and lightweight, and Agile allowed teams to move fast and be really successful. And of course, shared success stories. And then came this sort of second wave of, okay, how do we scale Agile? How do we? I'll talk a little bit about the history in order to talk about the future. But how do we scale Agile? So we start to come up with frameworks that work in big companies with many teams with very complex problems and lots of interdependencies and lots of legacy systems with no tests that I can't deploy. And then we build frameworks that are designed to try and help with all of those problems. And I think what we then see is many parts of those I think are not very agile. They may be more agile for a very large company than they were before, but to me they don't feel very agile at all. And then as we see more and more people getting some experience with these methodologies and trying to scale Agile, then we have very many people who now are certified as the Scrum Masters or in another framework, but many more certified people. And the challenge I think we face now, sort of coming to your question, is it's really hard to know who the good ones are, because certification isn't a differentiator. People have now very different understandings of what it means to be agile with a small a, be dependent on which environment they're from or which methodology they're used to. And then we see lots of this kind of fighting about what's the best method and that kind of thing. So I think we're in a difficult spot now if I think about the next 1 or 2 years of Agile, because we're in that zone now where there's a lot of competition between frameworks in a way, and then there's a lot of competition between different people who support different frameworks. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And because it's pretty easy for everybody to say, I'm an Agile something, how do we know who really knows this stuff? It's very, very difficult. So I see it becoming increasingly problematic for organizations to implement Agile well as a result of that fragmentation.
Yeah, that's a very good example. Are you facing this on your company side in the hiring when you guys are expanding, or do you see it more on the client side, misunderstandings around Agile, experience level, and so forth?
Yeah, it is a challenge, definitely. It was always a challenge finding good technical people with the right technical skills. Anyway, for the techies in the team, and now we layer onto that all the plethora of different Agile techniques and what they may or may not have experienced or liked. And as I said, just is increasingly difficult then to either find the good ones or find people whose values are aligned because they're actually used to different things. So when it was all XP and Scrum, it was much easier to say, those who are doing Agile are probably doing that, and therefore they already know how to work together. Now it's becoming more and more diverse. It's a little bit like you have these subgroups where, okay, if I get some safe guys, they're probably not going to want to work with the people who are just doing Scrum, and the Scrum people maybe don't understand this other framework someone's proposing. So I don't know if I really answered your question, but I think our challenge in the next year or two is how this fragmentation has caused more challenges with the success of Agile rather than less.
It's interesting.
How do we, maybe in business terms, this is, I guess you normally see consolidation, don't you? You see this fragmentation happen and then companies consolidate, and maybe at some level it needs a few things to converge in order to become simpler again. Yeah.
Well, sorry about the interrupt here, but I do hear you, right? So it's actually ironic, right? Because the fragmentation you're discussing, like various camps of processes, that was exactly what we tried to resolve in 2001 with a common term, right? And bringing things together under an umbrella term and go more like behavioral of what is Agile actually is, and now what we're ending up with is various camps. You did answer my question, and wanted to hear just your input. And it's very interesting that you feel this way. I have like 2 more things I wanted to touch on with you on this podcast, and that is for you as a CEO of a company like this, how does fixed price project work? I think this might be interesting for lots of listeners out there. How does fixed price contracting work for you? Do you do it? How do you prevent it from happening? Because that is a common challenge for consultancies, I would assume, as well as clients, right? Just the dialogue in these early stages when you're in the bidding process of making sure that we're actually an agile shop, but on the other side, there is this protocol of procurement and contracting, which often asks you for fixed price.
Yeah, it's a great question, Joe. I'm not sure I'm going to give the best answer for everyone, but we don't do it. So we don't do fixed price and we don't bid. So we've avoided the problem completely, let's say. Mm-hmm. But maybe I should talk a little bit about why we don't do it, and maybe
of course
some of the I might help with some of the kind of messaging around why we don't think fixed price is good for anyone. So I think the first thing to say is if I'm going to fix the price of something, I have to know everything up front. And if I have to know everything up front, I have to do tons of analysis and work to figure out what's needed. Mm-hmm. And of course, without any data or metrics or anything live, then that's all guesswork and will probably be wrong. And because it'll probably be wrong, I'm going to have to add a lump of contingency on there and make sure that I can't lose out financially. Which means, by the way, you're going to be paying a load of money for stuff we don't need to do, and maybe for stuff that's even the wrong thing because it's in the plan. So we don't think it's good for clients to do fixed price. So therefore, we won't do it. And then if we take sort of layer onto that, the thing I talked about at the very beginning about this incremental approach to product development. How are we going to discover what's the right product based on feedback from users and data and all this, all this analytics and data capabilities we now have to understand our users and build the right thing. And yet we're locked into a plan we thought of 12 months ago that we itemized 12 months ago and quoted for 12 months ago, and we're going to be kind of held to delivering that when actually what we discover is maybe the users want something different. So from my point of view, both commercially and in terms of building a right product, the best product for users, fixed price sucks.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense for the client. It's an outdated idea, and we just don't do it. And as a consequence, really, we don't bid because most bids require some level of prediction about exactly what everything's going to involve and even what the product's going to be in a year. And not only that, they expect us to do that from a questionnaire, which is clearly not humanly possible. So we enter into a bit of a game of which is just full of untruths. So so we haven't cracked that problem. We haven't solved that problem. I can't share with the listeners how we solved that problem. I can explain that we don't engage with that problem. Yeah, that's why.
Yeah, no, I expected that answer actually from you, but I wanted to just hear your reasoning, and it's awesome, right? From an approach perspective, it just fits with the culture of what you're trying to do with these agile projects. I have one more quick one here at the end. You work with media companies, you do work with digital products. I would assume some of those clients might be very small. They might be more in a startup kind of environment. You have worked with the startups in the past. Do you have any last minute advice for those startups? We touched a little bit on those very complex large programs before, but what about startups? Do you have any kind of advice for them using agile processes?
I think, we don't work with startups much, to be honest. We normally get involved with companies that have problems because we build software, we build teams, build products, but we usually come with a transformation brief as well to help solve organizational problems. And startups often are too small to have those problems, so we don't necessarily end up working with startups. But I think the challenge for a startup with Agile is very different. So startups are born Agile. It's like everyone's Agile to begin with. They've got no legacy systems, no legacy processes, no big organisation to manage and join interdependencies. Maybe they have their funding already. They're probably not on a fixed price contract. So I think startups kind of have this beautiful green field in a sense, which is why we're also envious of startups. I think the challenge for them is probably more around discipline and how do you apply, like if you take test-driven development and the huge amount of effort it takes to do that well, applying these practices from the start when you're not really sure if you've got a working product, if you're not really sure that your business is going to be viable in the end, everything's going to be very time critical because if you don't move fast, you get beaten or you run out of funding. So applying the sort of more disciplined side of Agile, particularly in the technical practices, I think is where startups maybe cut corners. And what we see, where we see it is a bit later on. So we see it in the companies that have scaled up. They've done brilliantly well. Their product was a great fit for the market. They've got further funding or starting to earn good revenue, and they've ramped up their engineering organisation. And then we see what is now a bigger company, but built on sand because they didn't build these things into the original solution, and now they're big. And it really hurts because now they can't get anything out the door because there's no test. They didn't know they were going to be successful, so they just didn't build things in a way that scales. So I think that what I would say for a startup is really focus on those engineering practices within Agile. Because if you are successful and you ramp up, it will cost you a huge amount more later if you haven't built them in from the beginning.
So typical growing pains, right?
Yeah. I guess it's hard to spend the time on things you may not feel you may not need. But if you're successful, I think you regret not building the platform in the right way.
Yeah.
Because once you're bigger, it's very hard to fix.
Yeah. Well, that is an awesome piece of advice. Kelly, I spoke with Kelly Waters from 101 Ways out of the UK. And his Twitter handle, if you want to reach out to him, is Kelly_Waters. And I just want to thank you for your time. I hope the listeners out there got some really good, valuable input, especially around how a consultancy would approach their clients and with agile processes. I just want to thank you for sharing your thoughts on this, Kelly.
No problem at all. I hope people find something useful in my comments.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Agile.FM, the radio for the Agile community. I'm your host, Joe Krebs. If you're interested in more programming and additional podcasts, please go to www.agile.fm. Talk to you soon.